Hey there folks, this is GreenXI, welcoming you right back to Let's Play Higurashi. This is episode 79. In the last episode, we started chapter 3, and we gave Oishi a run for his money in a game of Mahjong, and his mates as well. And this is Sato-san, who we are going to be talking to try and find out a bit more about Hinamizawa and stuff, I guess. So, let's have a look at what we got here. The informant, named Sato-san, had me get into his car before he set off. He favoured narrow roads and made numerous short left turns. Checking if we were being followed? Yeah, you know a lot about this. Checking to see if you were being trailed by making left turns was a rather classic technique. Why left? If it was just a single pursuer, you could confirm it that way. So you're always going the same way, so there's not much chance of like your follower going the exact same way as you every time either. I see. But if you were being tailed as a team, this archaic method wouldn't let you shake them. Of course, doing it anyway was better than not. I didn't hear anything from the boss as to who you are, Akasaka-kun. Related to the police? If you're familiar with checking for being tailed, the only other possibility I can think of is something like a private detective. If it's not something I have to say, I'd like to refuse to answer that question. My. Ever since we played Mahjong, you seem a lot more mature. I wonder where that hesitant person went from when we first met. I smiled wryly. Looking back now, I had to be a little grateful for being made to play Mahjong. Thanks to that, I was able to relieve some tension. Eventually, Sato-san, confirming that there was no cars following us, slipped outside the city. We were on a pitch-black country road, unable to see anything besides the lights outside. The only things I was able to hear were the hum of the car's air conditioning and the chirping of insects and frogs. I heard from the boss that he wanted to hear a bit about Hinamizawa village, yeah? Like about the old houses known as the three families who control the place, or that right now it's pretty much the Sonzaki family running things. If you know that much already, I'll cut out the introductions. Then, if you would, can you confirm or deny if the Onagafuchi Defense Alliance is involved with the kidnapping of Minister Inugai's grandson? Sato-san checked the rearview mirror one more time to confirm there isn't anybody behind us before speaking. Last night, the Sonozaki main house held a family council. Did you hear about it from the boss? No. If it was a normal meeting, then it would just be all the relatives coming together over a nice cup of tea or something. But a family council held by the main house isn't quite so relaxed. A family council held by the Sonzaki main house. That would be a meeting between those who truly controlled Hinamizawa village. They wouldn't be talking about private family matters, it would be about the village as a whole. About organising activities against the dam project. Among other things, everything would be decided there. In reality, they were deciding the fate of the village. At the head of the meeting was Oyu Sonozaki. More or less called Empress Sonozaki, as the ultimate decision maker of the clan, she was to be feared and respected. That's the old woman, I think, you know. Infirm with old age, yeah. She was often unable to stand on her own, but her words carried enough weight to sway the fate of the village. It seemed that lately she had grown weak, and on days where she wasn't feeling well, remained bedridden. Yeah, we saw that tip with Irie there, didn't we? Family councils that occurred while she wasn't feeling well took place with her on the floor. In the middle of a dignified Japanese-style room, still in the futon, only the upper half of her body sitting upright, a stern look on her face. That was Oyu Sonozaki. Sitting next to her was her heir, Mion Sonozaki. Sonowazaki. She was still young. No, young wasn't quite the right word. She was a girl who remained childish. Her role was to merely sit beside Oyu Sonozaki, sometimes responding to her requests. However, she was the only one deemed worthy to succeed Oyu. She had the same hawkish eyes, enough to give pause to anybody who so much as looked at them. Much was expected of her in the future, this granddaughter of the Sonozaki's leader. And also on either side of her sat several other important members of the remaining three families, the Kimiyoshi family and the Furude family. First on the list of the Kimiyoshi family was of course the mayor of Hinamizawa village, Kichiro Kimiyoshi, and lined up beside him were several more of his direct relatives. Opposite them sat the other of the three families, the Furude family. The Furude family was only comprised of the family of a Shinto priest, so the only ones sitting there were said priest, his wife, and their daughter Rika, and we learnt in the other arcs how the priest and the wife do die off because Rika lives on her own, or with Satoko, but you know. Rika was doted on by many of the older folks in the village, and it seemed that Oyu was no exception. While the stress from just attending a family council was said to be enough to shorten your lifespan by 3 days, it seemed like Rika was the only one exempt from that. No matter how charged the atmosphere was around her, she paid it no mind, instead humming along as she doodled in a sketchbook. In fact, the night before, lying on his stomach while humming and doodling, she nonchalantly tucked her legs into Oyu's futon like it was a kotatsu. They are really close then. All this was the three families. And all around the room, lined row upon row, were relatives of the Sonozaki family. The only ones who were afforded cushions to sit on were direct relatives. They're a huge family, in other words. The others were left to sit in the seiza position, directly on the tatami mats. Seiza? Yeah. With Empress Sonozaki enshrined at their centre, they were almost like a giant snake coiled around the room. It was decided that everybody would sit in order of their rank. The number of people from the Sonozaki family was overwhelming. The fact that the Sonozaki family held so many seats at a meeting where everything pertaining to the village was decided made determining where the balance of power was held in the three families as clear as day. The number of members in attendance from each of the families directly reflected how much influence they had in ruling Hinamizawa. What was talked about at that meeting? Sato-san, after remaining silent for a while, quietly began to speak. Oh. Was the momentary gift of appreciation to the media a little large? Breaking the long moment of silence was the head of the Kimiyoshi family, Kichiro Kimiyoshi. The Onagafuchi Defense Alliance wasn't a business. They were nothing more than a private organisation pushing for the cancellation of the Hinamizawa Dam project, with no reliable source of income. Fundraising had always been a problem. When they first started operating, they had managed to collect a sizable amount of funds through donations, but as the conflict dragged on, that amount was steadily declining. This isn't an era where you can get what you want just by throwing rocks. It's very important you don't underestimate the power of the media, and we want to borrow some of that down the road. The expressions of the people related to the Sonozaki family were sullen, as the one who suggested that they should borrow that power was the family head, Oyu Sonozaki. The battle wasn't just about force of arms. In this civilized age, there were civilized methods of fighting. Oyu suggested that creating a strategy incorporating the mass media. Oyu's foresight was spot on, and the effects of that plan, while at first unclear, slowly began to manifest. If the physical confrontation at the construction site was meant to delay progress on the dam by even 1 day, then the propaganda war using the media was aimed at attacking the dam project itself. At first, there were those who had doubts about that strategy, but there was nobody now who called those results into question. But in order to maintain those media ties, a colossal amount of money was required. As long as the amount of funds they had was abundant, things would turn out fine. It couldn't be argued that it was a massive expense, but the results spoke for themselves. But with the conflict continuing to drag on, the circumstances had changed. The head of the Sonozaki family, no, the one who sat at the pinnacle of the Hinamizawa's three families, Oyu, had suggested the idea herself, so it was already untouchable and continued to be allowed to drain from the budget. Nobody acknowledged that it should be so allowed, but nobody could say anything. That was the price of dealing with the mass media. What do you think, Oyu-san? The only person who could object to a plan proposed by the head of the Sonozaki household herself was probably Mayor Kimiyoshi. Oyu, with a hard-to-define expression on her face, as if she had severed herself from the fetters of mortal emotion, simply listened quietly to Kimiyoshi's words. But really, it was hard to tell if she was quietly listening, or didn't even have the intention of listening at all. Last year, we went through a lot of trouble getting people to wrap their heads around the price hike on the bulletins we were putting out. We convinced them it was just the one time. It just wouldn't do if we had another one this year. Right, Fude-san? The mayor looked to the priest and his wife from the Fude family for affirmation. The priest gave a vague expression, avoiding a prompt response, but his wife gave her answer without a second thought. That's right. The cost of the bulletins are a particularly harsh burden for the poorer families. Everybody is dealing with it for the sake of the village, but it's best we don't increase the prices anymore. The bulletin was, as its name implied, a bulletin published by the Onagafuchi Defense Alliance. It outlined the Alliance's activities, ideals, resolve, but he couldn't deny the contents were rather piecemeal. That bulletin's main goal wasn't to inform people, but rather was something to sell to businesses and people living in the village or connected to it, and using those sales to collect funds. In other words, it had become something of a tax. It does sound like it from how they were explaining it here. Of course, it didn't have to be said that this was one of the main sources of income for the Onagafuchi Defense Alliance. Originally, purchase was supposed to be voluntary, but in Hinamizawa it had silently become the opposite. In the neighbouring towns as well, it seemed that many businesses were buying copies just to avoid butting heads with the Alliance. The priest whispered to his wife to not say anything unnecessary, but was struck down decidedly with a cold glare. Cowering from that glare, the priest shut his mouth. The woman is always right. The priest's wife always held the power in their relationship. That was because she was the one who carried the Fude bloodline. Oh, okay. The priest merely married into the family. He was nothing more than somebody who adopted the name just to join the three families. He should have been able to find a spot fairly high up in the hierarchy of things, but the lack of authority in his voice meant that he had still not gained any favour. Casting a backwards glance at her rather disparate parents, Rika continued to doodle whimsically without paying them any mind. Signalled by a look from Oyu, Mion brought her ear closer to her grandmother. There, something was said to her in a quiet voice. After responding with a couple of questions, with a nod from Oyu, Mion looked around the room and conveyed her grandmother's words. There will be no freeze on the price increase for the building, so they're going to carry on increasing the price. Oh shit. Kiyoshi made a face like he had just bit into something unpleasant, but that expression quickly disappeared like it had never happened at all. But Mion-chan, I think you already know this, but the cost of the building is by no means easily affordable. It's a burden carried by everybody in Hinamizawa. If we make people carry too much of that burden, it's possible we'll collapse from the inside. And who on the inside would start that collapse? Who? I didn't mean it like that. I'm asking who would be the first to buckle. Being cross-examined by a girl who still had fragments of childishness remaining within her, the words stuck in Kimiyoshi's throat as he sank into silence. Mion repeated her question once more, looking around the crowded room. Everybody refrained, making eye contact to avoid being pierced by her gaze. The words she had spoken were unarguably said in proxy for Oyu. That's why when Mion spoke them, they carried the same weight. But the look in her eyes was different. Like Oyu's, they had a hawkish gaze, strong enough that anybody looking upon them would freeze in their tracks and yield. But that gaze was without question one that belonged to Mion herself. It's funny because Mion is nothing like this when we see her in the future, is she? When we see her in the club and everything. As Mion would eventually inherit everything from Oyu, the day when she would stand up as a young and capable leader in her own right would come. Nobody wanted to believe otherwise for even a minute. That's why nobody even thought of Mion as just some sort of little kid. Kiyoshi-san, nobody will lose the resolve over something like a price hike on the bulletin. Kiyoshi, while grumbling a little bit, made a gesture as if to say he had no objection. The expenses related to the mass media will continue. If those expenses become too much, we'll have no choice but to continue the price hikes. Mion had rendered her judgment. Everybody bowed their heads, silently listening to her words. In the name of Mion Sonzaki, as acting head of the Sonzaki family, I hereby declare that all this shall be effective immediately. There shall be no objections, and any opposition shall be removed by force. The formal decree was read aloud, indicating her judgment. There would be no retrial, but there was a certain authority behind those words that even the courthouse couldn't compare to. If she was a judge, she would have banged her gavel, signalling that the matter was settled. Mion pulled out a large bell from inside her clothes and rang it. Does that do the same thing as a gavel? Everybody present could only prostrate themselves before the harsh sound of the bell. So that's what the meeting is about. Okay then. How did he know all that? Well, that's a rather old-fashioned family council, isn't it? A young guy like you would probably find it hard to believe. In an antiquated place like this, these types of things have firm roots. It's exactly as Uishi had said. The old system of the three families had vanished, and now the Sonzaki family was running things by themselves. On top of that, their rule was borderline despotic. I don't know what that word means. Was that the end of the meeting? No, there's more. Okay, I'll continue. Okay, let's see what else is going on then. This is good, we're getting to see some insight into the head of the families finally. Eventually, after the ringing of the bell ceased, there was a deafening silence. Within all of that, a lone man shuffled closer to Mion and whispered something in her ear. Mion asked several questions quietly in response. When she was satisfied, she motioned for the man to leave. The man who talked to Mion was a member of a gang that her father was the leader of. That organization had the entire area of Shishibone City under its control, as it was quite well known even here. Of course, this was talking about the criminal underworld, so it's not like just anybody would know. But just showing a patch with the gang symbol on it was enough to resolve any disputes in the neighbourhood. Mion's biological father, to Oyu, was her daughter's husband. The power of that man's gang was the driving force that controlled the dark underbelly of the Onagafuchi Defense Alliance, and so that man, from his position as the next in line to control the three families, continued to coerce everybody around him with his unconventional presence. Mion exchanged a look with her father. Was it okay for her to tell what she just heard directly to Oyu? It looked like she was asking him that question. Her father gently but firmly nodded his response. Mion also nodded, then sidled up to Oyu and informed her of something. Eventually, Mion finished conveying a message, separated herself from Oyu, and fixed her posture, waiting for Oyu to signal her response. It wasn't often that Oyu showed any emotion. That's why, when she started to laugh quietly, a vague sense of uneasiness crept over everybody in her room. So, even though it's laughter, it can still be tense. That's quite the conundrum, isn't it? Oyu was laughing so happily that Kimiyoshi had to hesitantly ask, "What is it, Oyu-san? If this land is like a mother to us, then this business with the dam is like somebody threatening our mother's life, isn't it?" Kimiyoshi, unable to comprehend the meaning of her words, looked confused. Oyu, with a wide grin on her face, turned towards everybody and addressed them in a clarion voice. The minister behind the dam project is apparently rattled over the kidnapping of his grandson. That makes us even, so they have got him. Of course they have. That's absurd. Information on the kidnapping of Minister Inigai's grandson shouldn't have leaked from anyway. How did they know? Even we didn't know much about the kidnapping incident. Well, okay, I suppose it doesn't say for definite that they have been involved in it, but they know about it. Exactly how did an educated household so far away from Tokyo come to know of it? It was a tranquil place, but I couldn't help but have an uneasy feeling about Hinamizawa village. At some point, I had mentally filed this place away as unrelated to the incident at hand. That mental paperwork had just blown away in the wind. How did the Onagafuchi Defense Alliance know about that? Sato-san, unable to come up with an answer, fell into silence. I'm sorry. Please continue. Sure. Okay, what else are we going to find out? The Minister of Construction's grandson was kidnapped? Oyu-san, is that true? That major of an incident was nowhere to be seen in the newspapers or on TV. But in Hinamizawa, there's nothing strange about Oyu knowing something that the rest of the world didn't. Our pain is the pain of losing a mother. I don't think it completely makes up for it, but the pain of losing a grandchild. Oh, they're not going to kill him, are they? You'll have to bear with that for a bit, don't you think? The last question wasn't addressed to anybody in particular. It was as if she was looking for consensus. Still, land and a human child are different things. I don't mind hiding him here, but I want no harm to befall him. The child isn't to blame. Make sure to keep that in mind. I agree with that. That means that the Onagafuchi Defense Alliance was involved in the kidnapping? I can't say for certain. Why? Even though their leader Oyu was clearly giving orders on the treatment of the kidnapped child? Lad, you see, this is what the Sonzaki family always does. Always does? What do you mean by that? Let's say there was a particular problem. One that wasn't exactly favourable for the Sonzaki family. If Oyu shows concern over that particular problem, hearing that, somebody who attended the family council would be helpful. As a result, Oyu's wish would be granted. However, neither Oyu or anybody else would know who actually did it. Yeah, she's heard about a bit of information. She pushes out to the meeting with loads of people in there, and one of the people there secretly would know about it and would make sure something didn't happen without anybody else finding out he knew about it, kind of thing. I think that's what it's getting at. That was a bit confusing, but with this kind of clever little ploy, the Sonzaki family was able to manipulate events even though they had their hands laid out on the table. Then, that means that somebody who was at the family council was the culprit. Or, there's a possibility that there was never a culprit in the first place. Oh. Oyu herself, in that room full of people, didn't explicitly say that somebody pulled off the kidnapping. She was just giving her opinion. It was an odd and unpleasantly secretive way of doing things. Were they involved or weren't they? I couldn't see beyond the veil. This much, however, I could say with certainty. This kidnapping was an ironclad secret. No matter how high a position somebody was in, even they wouldn't know about it. If there was somebody who would know about it, they would be connected to public safety. In other words, one of us. Oh? The only other options were people connected to the case itself. Including the minister, there would be people affected by the incident. Or the people that committed it. In any case, There was no way an old household in a place removed from Tokyo by over 6 hours of highway travel should know about it. Them knowing at all was already strange. My suspicions began to accumulate, like falling snow. That's as much as all you said in regards to the kidnapping. Hopefully, what you wanted to find out was in there. After this, it's up to you. I don't know what kind of work you're doing, but if you're going up against the Sonzaki family, you'd best prepare yourself. Ushi might be fearless, but even he's been attacked 2 or 3 times. He hasn't been wearing it lately, but at one point he was wearing a stab-proof vest while off duty. Oh? Thanks for the warning, I'll be careful. You speak pretty well. You from Tokyo by any chance? I think that's going to be the end of the story then. The music stopped anyway, so... Huh? What's your point? Investigators were always close to danger. It was best not to divulge any information on myself. Your job. Could it be you possibly... Could you possibly be somebody from the Metropolitan Public Safety Division? I couldn't remain silent here. It would be the same thing as admitting it. Huh? No way! This wasn't accounted for in the money I got from the boss. As somebody who played at the same table today, I'll give you this one as a freebie. After Oyu talked about the kidnapping, there was one other topic that came up. Oh, there's going to be more. Another topic that Oyu brought up. And right before he told me this, Sato-san asked if I was the Metropolitan Public Safety Division. In other words, what those 2 things meant caused a chill to run up my spine. So you see, that in order to investigate the kidnapping of the minister's grandson, this words there will be an investigator from public safety dispatched all the way from Tokyo. An investigator from public safety? They can't be reckless and make a big deal over the kidnapping, so it seems the Metropolitan Public Safety Division is investigating this on their own. As a mouthful. Ain't that grand? What is it? Rika, who had been drawn the entire time and was completely uninterested in the conversation up until now, looked at Oyo with an interested face as soon as the topic of public safety came up. Did the Metropolitan Police come? Oh, so Rika-chama knows about the Metropolitan Police Department? That's very admirable. Who came? Is there anybody that knows what kind of guy from public safety came here? Mion's father raised his hand slightly. I hear that it's a nice young piece of fresh meat. Fresh meat? Is it nice and tender? Yeah, it is. Fresh meat. Mion's father smiled wryly as he answered Rika's question. Tender and tasty? Yeah, tender and tasty. Rika smiled with interest. Why did Rika suddenly act interested only when it came to this topic? That was a question that apparently nobody had the answer to. I think I know why. I think Rika knows who we are. Does Rika-chama know something about this man? I don't know. After a rather flat reply, Rika buried herself underneath Oyu's futon again. When she buried herself there, Rika no longer started drawing again. Instead, she was making an expression like she was deep in contemplation. What should we do about him? Mother? Mion's father posed the question. He had the type of uncouth expression on his face, indicating that, if given the order, he could snuff the problem out at any time. He came all the way to Hinamizawa. Let him take it easy for a little while. So you're saying to just let him go around as he pleases? Mion's father asked in response. Oyu smiled thinly as she responded. Leave him alone. But if he starts causing too much mischief, when that happens, don't hold back. I don't enjoy being taken lightly. I thought that was him. It's what they talked about, apparently. It couldn't be that you're that fresh meat from the Metropolitan Police, are you? It couldn't be. The sensation of cold, bristling fear began to crawl its way up my back. This family council took place last night. In other words, yesterday. Then today, when I was dressed up as a tourist headed towards Hinamizawa, my cover was already blown. When I remembered the first person I met when I got to the bus stop, I couldn't breathe. The person at the family council who expressed interest in the man being dispatched from the Metropolitan Police, Rika Furude. And then the person who was waiting for me the whole time in the bus shelter, Rika Furude. It was an unthinkable image. No, it was a delusion. When we met at that bus shelter, did Rika-chan already know my true identity? Did she know that I was Akasaka, dispatched from the Metropolitan Police Department, and come to meet me? Then, including Meika Miyoshi, every villager that I met, everybody knew but just pretended not to. Because Oyu had given instructions not to interfere. Thinking about it logically, it didn't seem possible. I met quite a number of people. If it's people that are good at acting, then there's people who are bad at hiding things. If there was that many people, then there should have been somebody among them who knew I was from public safety and couldn't hide their hostility. However, I didn't feel any presence like that. But then, even still, why did all you tell them to leave me alone? Was it because if they were careless about it, it would only raise more suspicion? Or was it because they believed a rookie like me wouldn't be able to find anything? Akasaka is a coward. I recalled that strange voice, which could only make me believe that Rika-chan had been possessed. That unknown entity, no matter how you looked at it, knew my true identity from the get-go. And then, how did it warn me again? That's right. It warned me to hurry up and go back to Tokyo. Instead of the realistic worry that the Onagafuchi Defense Alliance had discovered my identity, the absurd worry brought on by the unknown girl stuck with me more. What exactly was that girl? What was the thing I would eventually regret? That mysterious girl, Rika Furude. Let's stop this. Everything I was thinking of right now is merely conjecture. Tomorrow, first thing in the morning, I'll report everything I heard right now to HQ and await further orders. There was no mistaking that the possibility the Onagafuchi Defense Alliance were related to this case was there, and that the fact that my cover was blown meant I was in a precarious position. But as everybody at HQ was already extremely busy, they might not be able to spare the support. Is that everything? If you want, I can drop you off wherever you like. Oh, that's the end of the meeting from last night then. Ah, sorry. In that case, the station where we originally met, please. A rural road where even a streetlight was rare. I couldn't see anything. I wasn't aware of anything but the asphalt that was lit up by the headlights. Outside of that light, was it simply darkness? Or was there something lurking there, waiting to strike? I had to think I drew the short straw here. I wanted to go back to Tokyo. For some reason, the voice of the girl warning me to go back to Tokyo still lingered in my head. Ah, there we go. That was a good part, actually. We got to see a lot of the three main families and how they do things. How they secretly, even amongst themselves, handle things outside the meeting around Hinamizawa and everything. 3 tips, okay. And we also got to see that everyone already knew that Akasaka was probably the guy. Mahjong prodigy. Yeah, okay. Makes sense. But we got to see a lot in that chapter part. Even in such a short part, really. Anyways, we got a couple of tips to go for. 3 tips. What we got? The investigation runs aground. I can't swallow properly. Phlegm. Yeah! Yesterday, when we met at the restaurant in Ginza, that topic popped up. That's overstepping their boundaries, isn't it? They're meddling too much with public safety. If they keep doing that, they're going to set a bad precedent. It seems that Minister Inigai is openly uncomfortable about the way public safety is doing things. The Vice Minister is probably going to say something to that effect during Monday's debate session. But what can we do? We can only have the Director address the Vice Minister. That's why we pay him the big bucks. Well, if it comes to that, they're going to ask him for proof that the Minister's being threatened. Sometimes I don't know what side he's on. If he's not on ours, then what? Well, he's probably getting some pressure from the Minister. We'll probably just have to proceed with the investigation while he sweats it out in the Vice Minister's office and buys us some time. He might get so wrung out to dry that all that'll be left are dregs, though. So how's the investigation going? All the juicy leads I was pinning my hopes on turned out to be duds. Honestly, I'm at a loss. The reports that the Hinamizawa Dam project has been showing up a lot lately in the Minister's press releases, so what about that? Well, you say showing up, but it's really more of a very slight feeling that something's strange. He just happened to mention it during the speech at the prefectural forum, so it just might have been something that he was mentioning because it was relevant at the time. If I remember correctly, a local organisation there was protesting quite violently, no? The Onagafuchi Defense Alliance. I think Akasaka-kun was investigating that. I think those guys could possibly be behind what's happening now. Even if we can't say there's anything overtly suspicious about them, it might not be prudent to remove them from the picture. Akasaka-kun reported in passing that he couldn't deny that possibility. Then, isn't there merit in investigating them? We're going through everything with a fine-tooth comb, so if they're one of the suspicious groups that left, we'll eventually have to. Well, they're not the only group we should investigate, right? Yeah, if we're just talking about groups that are as suspicious as Onagafuchi, there's quite a few of them. We don't have the men, the time, or the money for it all. I'll try asking for more details from Akasaka-kun. I feel like we should pay some extra attention to this defense alliance. He's reported that he's established a rapport with the villagers. It also seems that he's collaborating with the local police. Thing is, when he told them that he was doing well with the villagers, it was before he found out from Sato-san. that they already knew and everything, so... Don't know. Yeah, collaborating with the local police. Keep your contact with Akasaka-kun on the down low. Also, if there's anything in his info that merits investigation, it's possible we can send reinforcements. Got it. Sorry, Chief Kataoka. It's a phone call from the director. Should I transfer it over here? No, it's okay. I'll head over there. Yes, hello? Oh, okay. So that's the guys behind the scenes, I guess. A bit of investigation going on. I don't know. What's in the box? Oh, okay. It's a head. Is it a cat? We'll never know unless we open it. Do you believe that there are choices in life? There are many people who lament the following. If there only existed points in life where there were clear choices to make, we'd be able to scrutinise those carefully and make decisions that would lead us to a better future. Every time I hear people lament as such, I cast it off as a rather trivial worry. Even if you were given a clear choice, it wouldn't be meaningful at all, and there wouldn't be any such path to a better future. Is this hard to understand? Then let's pretend that in front of you there are two strange boxes. Oh, we got another tip like the clock bit earlier. Okay, there are two strange boxes in front of us. In other words, you have two clear choices. Do you open the red box or the blue box? A lot of things would be uncertain, even with that choice, wouldn't they? Yeah, I don't know what's in. If you don't have the option of opening neither, then your choice boils down to the natural impulse of opening the box that holds the better result for you. Then after examining the shape and features of each, and pondering a great many things, you have to pick either the red or the blue. See, if it was me, I would just randomly pick a colour. I wouldn't even think about it. If this was you, which box would you open? I would probably... It depends on if one of them is meant to be dangerous or not. If it is, then I would probably go for blue, because red is more of a dangerous colour in general, even as we're seeing by you on the screen. Red or blue? If we were to go by the traditional meanings, then red would be Yes! Exactly. Red would be a dangerous, threatening colour. However, that doesn't automatically mean that it would be calm and relaxing inside the blue box either. I guess not. In fact, it might even be that the colours are a trap, making you wary of the red box and have you open the blue. A trap? Could it be the contents of the box aren't a reward, but rather a penalty? See, now you're at a loss. You're so conflicted over the choice between red and blue that you've started wishing there was an option to open neither and just leave. But there isn't. You have to open either the red box or the blue box. Oh, I forgot to say this. If you choose one box, the other will disappear. So you'll never know the contents of a box you don't open. I'll just put that rule at the end there for you. It's like, what's that show called? Oh no, there were like 50 people with boxes and you had to open certain ones for different amounts of money. Oh, whatever, I can't remember. Now, why don't you choose? The red box or the blue box? It's alright, you won't lose anything by picking either one. Come on now. Oh, we can actually choose! There's a bit of choice to the game! Look at it! That hasn't happened yet. I'll go with my original instinct to go for the blue box. Have you thought about it? In the end you chose this colour, didn't you? As soon as you chose, the other box disappeared. So you can give up on the contents of that one, okay? It hasn't made anything unique yet, based on the decision. It hasn't even said which one I chose. That's the rule. Now open up the box you chose. Inside the box there was a stick of chewing gum. That's alright. I know you're a little disappointed. Well, that's only natural. No matter how you look at it, it looks like you drew the dud. The correct box might have had a bar of chocolate in it for all you know. No, in fact, something incredible like a pair of tickets to Hawaii might have been in there. But even if you wanted to verify that, the other box has already disappeared. There's no way you can check now. But if you think about it from an optimistic point of view, just maybe the other box was empty and this box was the winner. And being satisfied, or perhaps not, with such a cheap prize, you pop it into your mouth and start chewing it happily. So what do you think in the end? If you were given a second chance, would you try to open the other box? See, I would always be curious. I don't know. But unfortunately, the chance to choose between the red box or the blue box has come and gone, never to be seen again. The chance to change your selection will never come. We're gonna try again now. Don't your parents often say, every choice you make in life only happens once, so choose carefully? See? Choices aren't that great after all. Aren't you a little disillusioned now? Okay. I want to try the, we tried the blue box just now. I want to see the red one, see if it does change anything. I'm willing to bet it won't, because there wasn't anything specific going on with the colour that you chose. Okay, let's skip through this a bit. I gotta be careful. Okay, here we go. We chose the blue one last time, so let's try the red. Yep, I thought about it. I did. It's exactly the same so far. Open up the box you chose. Is it a chewing gum? Piece of caramel. Oh, see! It is a bit different then. The contents of the red box and the blue box are a piece of caramel and a stick of chewing gum. You might have thought you made the wrong choice before, but now seeing them together like this, you can't really say that either choice was the wrong one. Is this because I chose both of them, went back and played it again? Is it telling me what both of them are now? I guess everybody has their personal preferences. If you prefer caramel to gum, for example, you're definitely thinking of choosing to open the box again based on that preference. The clear choices you wanted were basically this. The selfish desire to open up both boxes and compare the contents, then pick the one most suited to you. Yeah, that's what I would do if in the best case scenario. But you see, reality is the same as the game. If you pick one, the one you didn't choose disappears, so there's no way you could check the result. If at that time, if you had done this, or perhaps if you had done that, then it wouldn't be hard to imagine that you could be happier, or perhaps less happy than you are right now. In the end, you only have the pleasure of approving of, or being disappointed by the choice that you did make. But that's fine. After all, didn't you enjoy the thrill of making the choice? If, like now, you knew the contents of both boxes, then the choice between the red box or the blue box would just be a waste of time. Because instead of this boring game about boxes, you could be looking at the quickly changing evening summer sky, listening for the distant sound of thunder, and pondering if it's going to rain or not. That would be much more fun. It's gone back to the rain again, like the other tip. But yeah, that was a good tip. I enjoyed that one because it gave you something to think about, and it gave you a bit of interactivity to it, which, as a visual novel, you don't generally get, or at least in these ones. Anyway, let's move on to the next one now. The Glint in the Demon's Eye. Yes. So the wake will be from 6 PM tomorrow, and the service will be the day after from noon until 1. What? Who's what? The venue will be Hinamizawa ceremony hall. I see. It's Deputy Mayor Ikazawa's grandson's funeral we're talking about. We'll have to pay our respects. Shit, they killed him off. Mion, I'll have you go in my stead. Okay, got it. Should I wear mourning clothes? How much should I bring for the funeral offering? You can go in your school uniform. Make sure you button it up properly. For the money, 50? No, 100,000 yen. They've done a lot for us. Mion quietly whistled in awe at the exorbitant amount of money her grandmother was offering. Ikazawa-san's been a prudent person ever since his days as head of the Okinawa Municipal Office. Even if those government types paid me a visit, they'd always stay outside. But whenever I offered Ikazawa-san a cup of tea, he'd come inside and carefully listen to what I had to say. He always lent a proper ear to what people had to say. Others should learn from a person like him. The two guests made a show of nodding, making it clear they were paying attention as Oyu reminisced. The sight of them trying not to get on Oyu's bad side was humorous enough to elicit laughter from Mion occasionally. How young was Deputy Mayor Ikazawa's grandson when he died? 11 years old, apparently. Oyu closed her eyes and shook her head lightly, lamenting the loss of such a young life, so it wasn't anything to do with her, right? If I recall correctly, he said he only had one grandchild. How sad. There's nothing worse for a parent than outliving their offspring. You're really nice to other people, Granny. If Shion and I died, would you be this sad? Don't be stupid. so saying something like that is bad luck. Having got the reaction she expected, Mion cackled. The two guests, unsure if they were supposed to laugh along, instead forced awkward smiles. We'll take our leave for today then. We'll be by tomorrow evening at 5 to pick you up. Until then, please excuse us. After bowing their heads repeatedly, the guests left by the front door. Mion saw them off, waving her little hand goodbye. They're gone. I just realised how strange it is that Mion still looks the same as well. They haven't changed the art sprites for 6 years, in the past, so I don't know why. They're gone. It must be rough for them to pay your courtesy visit, Granny. It would have been fine if they just broke the news over the phone. Well, it was true that Oyu Sanzaki was the central person for both the relatives and the residents of Hinamizawa village as a whole. As a voting bloc, they numbered in the several thousands. It wasn't hard to imagine the mayor would try to pander to her. Unlike Mion, however, Oyu was looking up longingly at the sky from the veranda. What's the matter? You going senile? I just thought that no matter whose grandchild it was, I'd feel sorry for them. Saying that, she let out a deep sigh. Mion was let down, as normally her grandmother would have scolded her for her attitude. Mion, you know, that minister's grandson. How long has it been since he was abducted? 4 days, maybe. Oyo let out another deep sigh. He may be the grandchild of our bitter enemy, but I still feel sorry for him. Really? That's enough of a warning. We should bring this to an end soon. The playful expression drained from Mion's face, leaving behind a stern one, and then, as if to ascertain Oyo's will, looked into her eyes. Oyo, expressing her intention with only those eyes, looked back into Mion's. I want some tea. Could you call for some? Some of that chocolate, too. Mion gave a small nod, then turned around. Shumiko-san, you there? Grandma wants some tea. Could you prepare some? From far away, a voice responded in the affirmative. Mion, after confirming she'd been heard, picked up the phone and began dialing. Ah, hello? This is Mion. Yeah. Is my father there? Oh, wow. So we got to see that it still doesn't mean that the Sonzaki family wasn't involved, but either Oyu knew about it and was saddened because the damn protest had to go that far in order for them to get results, or she didn't know about it and she was just sad to hear of her death. I mean, who knows? Who knows? But anyway, I think the tips have been incredible during this part. They've been even more important, I think, than the main story itself half the time. So, I'm loving this arc more than I did during the manga or the anime. For some reason, I think this has given a lot more information. No, it's given pretty much the same information as the manga and anime probably, but I don't know. I can't remember fully enough how much was in them, but anyway, I've been rambling on. So, this has been Greeny XI. Hope you've enjoyed Chapter 3, which I think has given us quite a bit of insight into things. Still a bit of mystery on the go, though. It'd be boring otherwise, wouldn't it? So, thanks again for watching, folks. I'll see you again in a bit, where maybe Akasaka will go back into Hinamizawa. Who knows? See you in a bit, folks.